I've come to Oudedoem, just outside Poperinge in Flanders, to see this relatively new memorial to the Chinese Labour Corps unveiled during the Great War centenary. By the end of the Great War, this was truly a world war where men came from all over the world to serve in the British forces here in Flanders. Among them, nearly 100,000 men that formed part of the Chinese Labour Corps, who were depicted in the figures on this memorial. For most of the conflict, while the war was still on, they were doing what we see symbolised in this figure here, with a Chinese Labour Corps soldier carrying a shell, a large caliber shell on his shoulders, and they were bringing up ammunition and supplies and war material and working on the roads and the infrastructure behind the lines. So not fighting in the trenches, but working on that important infrastructure that kept the trenches going, essentially. And then on many occasions, when they were billeted near to Poperinge, there were camps across these fields here, and the camps came under shell fire and they were bombed from the air. And this figure, where we see a Chinese Labour Corps soldier with a stretcher, I would guess symbolises the losses when those camps were bombed and men of the Labour Corps, Chinese Labour Corps, were killed. And they're buried in quite a few cemeteries in this area. But when the war was over, the men of the Chinese Labour Corps stayed on. They went on into the aftermath period, and their role then was the work on the creation, construction of the cemeteries and the recovery of the dead. And what we see in this final statue, where he's pushing his shovel into the soil of Flanders, is a nod really to that important work, where thousands of men of the Chinese Labour Corps went across the old battlefields and helped with the recovery of fallen soldiers from Britain and its former empire, creating those, as Rudyard Kipling called them, the silent cities. So the role of the Labour Corps, which this important memorial commemorates, the role of those Chinese Labour soldiers who were here during the Great War, is a really important part of our understanding of the global nature of the First World War. This memorial commemorates 13 men of the Chinese Labour Corps who were killed in an air raid on their camp here on the 15th of November 1917. And by that stage of the Great War, the Germans were using Gotha bombers to come over and bomb the infrastructure behind the lines, the camps, the ammo dumps, even some of the hospitals. And this camp came under German bombs at that time, and 13 men of the Chinese Labour Corps were killed, whose names are listed on the memorial here. And they're buried in cemeteries in this area. Although China was not a Commonwealth nation, it did come under the responsibility of the then Imperial War Graves Commission and now the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. So their dead are buried in British and Commonwealth cemeteries. And when the war was over, because these men had been specifically enlisted into the British Army, they were given campaign medals as well. In their case, a bronze British War Medal that was unique to the labouring units that served for Britain and its empire during the Great War. And even bronze memorial plaques were given to the fallen of the Chinese Labour Corps, not engraved with their names, but with their Chinese Labour Corps service number instead, making them one of the rarest memorial plaques to find in terms of the history of that artefact connected to the Great War. So it's important to come to sites like this, where statuary remembers the fallen and where plaques like this record that they too had casualties on this battlefield behind the lines, because by 1917-18, nowhere was safe on the Western Front. When we travel to battlefields like Ypres in Flanders, we concentrate on those areas where the fighting took place. But the area behind those lines, and I'm close to the town of Poperinge just over here, is just as important. Because if we look across this almost timeless landscape, where we do actually see buildings that were here more than 100 years ago, because there was no fighting here and nothing was destroyed in the same way it was at Passchendaele or Hoog or Zillebeek or any of those other places up on the actual battlefields around Ypres. This is the area where the British Army and the Commonwealth forces went about their business to make those battles possible. So here were the camps where soldiers rested, going to and from the trenches. Long columns of men would march up across the roads here, going up to the line and coming back from taking part in the actions around Ypres itself. There would be the whole infrastructure of support with supplies and ammunition depots. So you'd have seen columns of limbers and guns moving up to gun positions that would have been around Poperinge and firing up onto targets where the Germans were on the Messines Ridge or just east of Ypres itself. And for most of the war, soldiers who were in the trenches in Flanders spent just as much time on this landscape as they did in the landscape of the very front line, because the army realised fairly early on you had to give soldiers rest, you had to prepare them for battle, and there were training grounds here and there were places where they could have some time off and go into Poperinge and visit cafes and estaminets, have their photograph taken and all kinds of other activities as well. But this landscape, visited less than the battlefields themselves, is just as important in our understanding of the landscape of the First World War on the Western Front. I'm standing in front of the War Memorial here in Poperinge, one of the main British towns behind the front line in Flanders during the Great War. All of the troops that moved forward to take part in the fighting at Ypres came through Poperinge at some point, and men from many, many different nations. Although it was near to the front line, it was far enough away to avoid serious destruction. So when we look at the church, the building is original. The roof was damaged, the tower of the church was damaged, but the structure is original, as are many of the buildings here in this square. If we could bring back soldiers from the Great War who were here, they would recognise Poperinge from their wartime experiences. And it was a town that was thronging with British soldiers pretty much 24 hours a day, really, because men went about their military duties here, but they came here on rest. They could have their photograph taken in photographic studios, they could visit shops here, and they could go to some of the many cafes and estaminets that were here for food and drink. So it was a popular place for British soldiers to visit when they were out of the line in the camps around Poperinge. So for many men, this was a place, a kind of escape from the war, a place that they came to live as much of a normal life as they could do within the confines of their experience as soldiers in the Great War. And Poperinge, more than a century later, remains pretty much unchanged. I've come to the back of Poperinge Town Hall here in Flanders to look at one of the darker chapters of First World War history. Here during the Great War, a number of British and Commonwealth soldiers were executed by firing squad, shot at dawn. And they were kept in the cells, in the old police cells of the town hall just here, and then brought into the courtyard for execution. And this memorial records that. The execution post in steel, then it would have been wood, was the kind of thing that soldiers were shot against, either tied to it or placed in a chair in front. And at the back, this symbolises the sandbag wall that was placed behind to absorb the bullets of the firing squad that might have missed the target. In the Great War, 306 men were executed for military crimes and another nearly 50 for civil crimes like murder, for example. But the military crimes typically were desertion and cowardice and casting away their arms in the face of the enemy. Many of these men, when you examine the cases, clearly had some degree of combat stress, shell shock, battle fatigue, whatever we're going to call it, but others were very different. It was a complex world, a different world more than 100 years ago, and today it's right that the relatives of those who were shot at dawn, with a great stigma over them during the Great War, can now march in remembrance services at the cenotaph or at their local war memorial, just as it should be, because these men were as much victims of the Great War as those who died on the battlefield.